Hey, Fanboy Nation.
This is your pal Daffy Duck, and you're watching.
We're watching Fanboy.
A fanboy, etc.
Fanboy Nation.
I assume Tom.
Today, it is my pleasure to speak to a fellow Assyrian over at the Carlson Gracie Irvine branch of the Academy. Jason, Youseph, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm great, man. Listen, you are a multiple-time champion. You started Jiu-Jitsu, I believe, 2005 or 6. Mm-hmm. You know, you've worked your way up to now a second-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Correct.
And you own your own studio here in Irvine, California.
Correct.
Congratulations, man. Not most Assyrians go this route, and especially since your mom's from Goitapa and my
Yes.
dad is as well.
Absolutely.
You know, you should have been an engineer like everybody else is basically what they're going to tell you.
That's the one thing I think my mom tried to push on me is either I should have been a lawyer, a doctor, or an engineer for sure.
I joke with everybody, especially from Iran and Lebanon, wherever else from the Middle East. You know, we have 5 careers. It's some sort of science, so it's medical, pharmacy, biologist, whatever, lawyer, you know, engineer of any type, mechanical, civil, all of it. Business is the acceptable one, and then the 5th one is shame of the family.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But you took that whole shame of the family aspect and turned it into a successful Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu career by opening up your own studio and training as part of the Carlson Gracie family.
Yeah. It's funny actually. I would say the majority of our family is all doctors, and there's some lawyers in there, you know. And then I told my mom I wanted to be a fighter, and she's like, "Why are you doing this? Like, you should go be a doctor." And you know, I studied the first 2 years of college. I studied business law, and I just picked up the book. It was so thick, and I didn't want to do it anymore. And the day came, and I said one day I'm gonna open a school, and she kept trying to get me not to open the school. And the day came, and I opened the school up, and I never looked back. And it was honestly, it's been so amazing. It's been the greatest blessing. You know, I've got to reach out to so many different people and help so many people in their lives, you know, achieve things that either they never thought they can achieve, and at the same time elevate people, you know, to being better every day, you know. And that's always been my favorite part about this, you know.
You know, you seem too calm to be a Carlson guy, because Carlson, I think, was famous for saying, and I'm paraphrasing at this point because I don't want to get the quote wrong, you know, violence isn't always the answer, but it's an option.
Absolutely. And if you have the option, you don't need to show the violence. You don't need to show the aggression, right? And so I was just talking to my wife about this. We were discussing this, how some people say that, if you are trained to be violent, why aren't you violent? It's because you have the training to become violent, that it can be an option, and you can be able to turn that switch off and on. So, you know, I always, you know, for me, it's like, I love the fact that I can just be this happy, you know, always smiling type of person. And, you know, if I need to choose to turn on the switch, I can turn on the switch, you know. And the Carlson Gracie team, they're an extremely aggressive team. They are definitely probably the most aggressive team. They're known for their pressure passing. They're known for their pressure game overall. But it's the aggression. I think a lot of the old Carlson Gracie senior black belts, they were an aggressive group. They were very feared. So
they were very much the freestyle wrestling of BJJ.
Yeah.
The interesting thing with the different schools of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you know, like there's Hickson style, there's Carlson style, there's Holes and Roy and Hoyce and everybody else. You know, how did you discover Carlson versus the other branches of the Gracie family, or even the Machadas?
So
and go about that route.
Yeah. So it was 2005 or 4, and I was talking to some friends. They all said they, you know, trained, and I wanted to feel like I fit in, and so I ended up telling them, like, yeah, I train too, and I didn't really know what I got myself into, and I went down to a local LA boxing, and I signed up for the classes there, and I met a guy named Allan Goes. He was the jiu-jitsu instructor. He ended up opened up his own location, and Allan Goes was a Carlson Gracie senior black belt, and he was one of the first black belts that came to California from Brazil. And so when he came, he opened up his own academy I would say probably around that same time, 2005, in Mission Viejo. And then when he left, I ended up going over to his academy because I met him at the LA Boxing, and then I started training with him. And at the time, I was doing more MMA. So I had some MMA fights at the time. I was really kind of enjoying the boxing and the wrestling and the just the different varieties of the sport. And then one day came, and it was my last fight, and I trained so hard for it. And at the very end, the fight only lasted like 30 seconds. Took the guy down, past his guard, mounted him, and ended up triangling him from the mount. When it was done, it was so quick and fast that I was just kind of like, I didn't see the value in what I was doing, and there was no money back then. You know, we're talking 16 years ago. There was no money. You know?
Even the UFC wasn't paying that.
Oh, the UFC wasn't paying anything, right? They even their champions were making like 50, 60 grand, and so I decided I went to I went to Allan and I said, hey, I want to be a black belt. I want to be a martial artist. That's my dream. I don't want to be a fighter anymore. So he said, bring your gi, come to class, and let's start. So the next day I went, and I spent every single day. I was competing every other weekend as much as I possibly could, traveling the country, competing just to be able to, earn my way, to achieving my black belt. And so I spent countless hours and years, getting myself to go out there and competing, and it's been just so much fun. It's been so much fun. It's been the greatest experience.
Yeah. What I respect the most about Carlson style and Rickson style is that it never devolved from being the self-defense aspect of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu into sport Jiu-Jitsu that only wants to be BJJ. Yeah. Like some of the other ones, their whole goal, instead of defeating other martial arts, their goal became just defeating BJJ and watering down aspects of the art into a sport. Similar to what happened to Judo, unfortunately, being the parent martial art of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that kind of de-evolved into now no more leg takedowns with the International Federation. And, we tossed them, all right, we don't have to worry about Nawaza anymore. Whereas Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu kept the Nawaza aspect of it. With them being part of one family, will we ever see Judo and Jiu-Jitsu become one art again?
I think so, because I think now with ADCC being the biggest organization in the world it's kind of like our Jiu-Jitsu Olympics, they put a lot more emphasis on the stand-up game, which allows, the old rules of Judo, where you could have done double legs, single legs, fireman carries, as well as, gripping the pants, and, all those things could be used here. And the only thing I think with ADCC, which I think makes it hard, is they give you the first 5 minutes where there's no points, and the last 5 minutes there's points. And people that are new to Jiu-Jitsu, they don't understand, what's the first point? What's the whole idea behind this? But I think they have done a great job with the bringing back the emphasis on the stand-up aspect of Jiu-Jitsu, because nowadays you go to the tournaments, the guy slap bumps, sits down, and again, new people coming to the table, they're looking at this going like, well, why did that guy just sit down? You have no idea why he sat down.
Right.
And personally, I do a lot of Judo myself. We do a lot of Judo here at our academy. We've had several Judo black belts train with us through the years. I pride myself on my Judo and my defense for Judo. So we do a lot of training here for that. And I think it's the biggest part of training Jiu-Jitsu is being comfortable with the stand-up aspect, because in the self-defense side, if I ever have to be outside these walls and I have to defend myself, I can't sit down. I have to take that guy down by any means necessary. If I'm in here, we stand up every round. We stand up every round. We make sure that everybody's on their feet and they're comfortable on their feet. I hope more people, practice more stand-up, to be honest. I think that'd be fantastic to see. And it'd be there's an organization, Fight to Win, Seth Daniels. He actually does the super fights for Jiu-Jitsu, and then he also does Judo matches as well. So he has judoka guys come through, and they will compete on the stage, which is cool because then a lot of the younger jiu-jitsu generation can see, oh wow, these are high-level judo guys, because judo does not get the attention that it deserves unless it's in the Olympics, and then everybody talks about it for just a few weeks that it's there, and then it's gone. But I really hope that we see more stand-up, especially. I think the rules should change where it should not allow somebody to sit down. I would be in favor of that.
Because, I mean, for people that don't realize, is that a throw is the same point scale as pulling guard and then putting somebody in an armbar.
Correct.
So if the points are even, why am I going to try to have more effort and to get him down when I can already just pull him down?
Correct. And you're 100% right. If they were to just award it where, hey, if you pull guard, this guy would have gotten a takedown if, it's the same situation. So they should award that guy 2 points. I think that would be fair. And then if you're good at your jiu-jitsu, then you should be able to pull guard and get your armbar, or get your triangle choke, or but I think that would be fair, and then it would prevent people from pulling guard.
Yeah, that's something I'd like to see along the way, because Sambo's starting to pick up, but not at least here in the United States. Yes. And the interesting thing with jiu-jitsu is that it has ties to more freestyle wrestling with the leg takedowns, thanks to Mark Coleman,
yes,
who was the godfather of ground and pound. Like, I was the one that broke the story when he retired.
Yeah.
We were doing a phone interview because he had just replaced I believe it was his hip. And Mark's like, "Yeah, I'm done." And I was like, "Wait a minute, are you officially retiring?" And he said, "Yeah, I guess so." And so I broke the story with that, and I was thrilled. But then you see Sambo, and it has a lot more Greco style to it, whereas jiu-jitsu has a lot more of the freestyle wrestling to it. Is there something that's going to happen with all grappling arts that they might become one? Because there's also catch wrestling, and which is the original no-gi submission style.
Yeah. So I think again that goes back to ADCC, where they tie in not just jiu-jitsu black belts. They've had judo black belts. They've had catch wrestlers. They've had Olympic wrestlers. They've had every single person from all over the world. The best grapplers. I'd like to see more Sambo guys give it a shot, to be honest. That'd be pretty cool. But I think ADCC is by far probably the most on the level for a variety of mixtures, where you don't have to be a black belt. You could be a blue belt. You could be a catch wrestler, a D1 wrestler. You could be anything, and you can go there and give your shot. But I think ADCC over the next several years, I think we're going to see the evolution through them.
Well, Abu Dhabi is the granddaddy of them all, so let's hope.
Yeah.
You've competed in Europe and won titles there. You've competed in the United States. You've gone international as a practitioner. Take us through competition respect-wise from MMA and then from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and what's the dichotomy that shows of professional fighter as an MMA fighter and professional fighter as a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu martial artist?
Sure. So I would say the MMA side, if we start there, the aspect and the mindset are completely different. And the reason why that's different is because there's the old mindset of like 2 warriors enter the Coliseum, 1 leaves, right? So, and in essence, 2 guys walking in a cage, they lock you in there, and 1 guy's walking out of there, right? There's no shared victories. I'm here to win, and by any means necessary, and I'm going to do whatever I have to do to win. And so the mindset is very ugly. The mindset is not pretty. It's very aggressive. You don't have a lot of friends. It's kind of like, in a way, it's kind of like acting, right? Like, you have to train yourself to be in that mind frame to be able to perform at that level and to be able to deliver some of these. Like, if you look back to Dan Henderson and Michael Bisping, right? The punch that Dan Henderson landed after the fact, there was so much anger behind that punch. There was so much violence behind that punch. There was so much just, you have so much dislike for the person in front of you that you don't care that you've injured him for the rest of your life, right? And I think that's the mindset of MMA, which we love to see, right? Oh man, what a knockout. Oh wow, what a punch. Oh wow, that was so much fun to watch, because some of us really enjoy that. But what you don't see is that person just lost his career. That person will no longer be the same. Mark Coleman, he was so violent with his knees and his elbows, and he ended careers, and if you think about what really happens to your body over years of abuse, right? Because the concussion protocols that they do for football, we don't do anything like that for jiu-jitsu. They are not that on top of it, And if you start to see the evolution of some of these fighters, and you see how they become over a long career, it's sad, it's sad, and it's. But again, the preparation for an MMA fight, the mindset for the MMA fight is extremely aggressive. It's extremely it's very extreme, actually. It's just very extreme is the best way to probably put it. Now, for the jiu-jitsu side, I've competed from the adult divisions from when I was in my young 20s all the way, now I'm, mid 30s. I'm 36 now, and, I've competed in Master 2. And I feel that through that, there was never an ill intentions of hurting somebody as if I were to hurt them in an MMA fight. Because if I drop my elbow so hard on the guy and I fracture his skull, everybody thinks I'm just a badass. But if I break somebody's arm, or I break somebody's leg, or I break somebody's neck, the last thing I want to do is end somebody's career in jiu-jitsu, because I know that man is a family man. I know that guy has kids. I know he's got a wife that he's providing from his school, and that's kind of the difference I feel like with jiu-jitsu, is that, it's a little bit more personal. We all understand that we're in this together, because jiu-jitsu does not provide, in a tournament setting, it does not provide a lifestyle for people to go and live. Gordon Ryan is one of the rare exceptions. But people can't be millionaires, competing. We pay to play, and so you have to rely on, hopefully you get a sponsor. And I had sponsors before, and they paid for travel, they paid for little knickknacks, but it doesn't give you the lifestyle that you're hoping for, like in MMA, right? You can have a lifestyle where you have a good career, you're making good money, and it might be worth it. But in jiu-jitsu, we all know that we're here to keep doing this every weekend, every other weekend. So the last thing I want to do is, I don't want to hurt somebody who's doing this for a living, to be able to build his school and build his brand. And I'll give you a story. It was Nogi Worlds about 5 years ago. I ended up becoming really good friends with this guy, and I caught the guy in a straight arm lock, and I felt his arm pop, and I kept the arm, and I pulled it in, and I asked him, "Are you okay?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm fine." The ref says, "What's happening?" I said, "His arm popped." The ref says, "Are you okay?" He goes, "I'm fine." And then I was like, "Are you sure?" He goes, "Yeah." And I was like, "Dude, I don't want to hurt you." And I was like, "I heard your arm pop, so I don't want to continue this. But I told him I will." And he goes, "Okay." And the ref says, "Fight." And the guy goes, "Stop. You win." And we stood up. He shook my hand. And he came back and after the fact, and I saw him maybe a couple hours later, and he had time to sit this through. And he says, "Hey, thank you so much for not hurting me and bringing the arm back, because you could have broken my arm. I would have went home, and for the next 6 months, I wouldn't be able to teach and run my school, and my academy would have suffered, right? And then I don't know what I would tell my wife and my kids. It's hard to look at my kids and tell them, Daddy got hurt." And so he goes, "You taught me a good lesson today." And I took that moment and I brought that back to my school, and I tried teaching that same mindset to every single one of my students, that even though the aggression is there, the switch is on, I can fight at 100%, but my intention is not to hurt you. I have so much control in my jiu-jitsu that I can take you to the edge and force you to stop the fight, and then make sure you still don't get hurt, But there's people that they want to hurt you, and those guys do exist, but you don't see that as often in jiu-jitsu, and that's what I think the big difference is. You have guys in MMA who are super extreme. They want to actually hurt you. They want to see you. They want to see you hurt. They want to break your arm. They want to break your leg, because it's a victory for them, and they get played all over the world for, look how cool this was. I broke his jaw. But in jiu-jitsu, if that happened, we downplay the guy, right? There was a guy, I won't say his name. He punched the guy during the match. Everybody gave him crap about it. They're like, "How dare you do that?" We don't want that here, because we don't we want people to continue this because we laid all this groundwork over the last 10 years for all these young kids now to come up and start making money, you know? So that's where I feel like there's the huge difference, you know, and I love jiu-jitsu now because the competition mindset, even though we train hard, we prep for all the victories to be won here, we just go there and pick up our medals, you know? That's what I teach, you know? All the hard training is done here, but we train so hard and we have so much control that it's very rare if somebody gets hurt. And when you go out there, you're essentially trying to, you know, replicate all the same training you've done here, but with a higher level form of respect to that person because they traveled all over across the world just to come see you, you know, just to fight with you, just for a few minutes, you know? And so we give our opponents the highest level of respect, you know. You'll always see the jiu-jitsu practitioner. Gary Tonin is a great person. I don't know if you know Gary Tonin.
Not personally.
So he was one of the guys from Danaher Death Squad. He'll catch somebody, he'll arm lock them, he'll foot lock them, he'll get up, give them a hug, and he'll shake their hand and he'll bow to them. I'm very much the same way, you know, and I've always been that way. But he's one that a lot of people know as well, and he shows a very high form of respect to his opponents, even in MMA, because now he's in one fighting or whatever.
One championship.
Yeah, one championships. Mm-hmm. And so he's over there and he does the same thing. He gives the highest level form of respect to his opponents. And I think that respect that you give to your opponents, I think that's the biggest thing, you know, and it's what actually, you know, makes jiu-jitsu so amazing is that two guys can give 100% and still respect each other so much. So it is a huge difference.
You know, with like, I'm going to pick on wrestling a little bit because that's my original background, but like in Russia, they focus primarily on technique and they go 30-40% in practice. Iran, same thing, you know, it's technique, drill. They go about 40-50%. American style of wrestling will go 100%, 100 miles an hour all the time. Some American Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu styles and schools will do that. How does your method differ from some of that? Are you more technique based and slow down the pace so you make sure you get everything right? Or is it the old school mentality of, you know, let's tap him out and let's let him figure it out along the way and put the puzzles together?
Yeah. So I actually, I'm very big on preaching that technique first, slow is smooth is fast, right? However, I truly believe you will master this art when you can learn how to flow. So if me being 170 pounds, I'm not a big guy, I don't lift weights, I don't squat, I don't bench press, I don't do anything. But I've gone out and competed in the heavyweight divisions, ultra heavyweight divisions, and I've won. But I'm able to win because it's technique, it's not strength, right? So me going 100% will not matter if the guy's 300 pounds. I've fought quite a few guys that are 6'4", 300 pounds, and I've been able to submit them because my technique was there, right? But what I teach in my class is that I want them to go slow, I want them to use technique, I want them to flow more, because the more they can flow, the more technique they use, the more the muscle memory will set in when time comes, when your body's tired. So when you're tired, your energy, your explosion is going to be gone. So there's no point to using any more strength. So you have to be able to get the technique correctly in order to execute what you need at the time that you need it. So I feel that for me, it's always been technique first, be able to flow, and the more you can flow, the better your performance will be when you compete, you know? And yeah, I go 100%, you know, I got some guys that can, you know, we can do that, but I don't do that every day because you can't. You just can't. It's physically impossible. There's not one black belt out there that can tell me they go 100% every round, every day, every class, 5-6 days a week. It doesn't exist. They use people as what you call as a rest round, and they use them to flow, they use them to move, and then they get the next guy, they go a little bit more aggressive. It's not 100%, but it's 30-40%. And then, you know, and then they get the other guys who give them more of the competition aspect, and they go a little bit harder now. And, you know, and that's how these guys, they get so good. You know, they can change the levels from 100 to 50 to 10% even, you know.
What would you tell people that are interested in picking up a martial art, especially jiu-jitsu? You know, because you'll sit there and they'll go to the beginner's class, and then, like myself, I have 2 bad knees, you know, just, they're deteriorated at this point. And then they'll do the break falls, and like everybody's on break fall 3 or 4, and they're still on break fall 1, trying to get up, make sure that the pain isn't shooting through.
Yeah.
You know, and they feel discouraged because it's like, if this is the beginner class and I'm not even at the beginner level, what's the point in continuing on? What do you tell those people, and how do you help them along?
So I tell everybody, because I have a lot of students that have a lot of injuries previously to coming in, and I say, look, I want you to give me your 100 when you show up, right? My goal is to be able to get you to be better than the day before, right? So when you come in today, my goal is to make you better for tomorrow. So if you doing 1 break fall and everybody else does 100, well, that's 1 more today than you did yesterday, because you didn't do anything yesterday. And so I would tell my students, if you can't do it, don't try to do something that's going to injure you. I'd rather you get through what you can, do the rest of your techniques, do the rest of your drills, and we'll get through this break fall thing in a later time. And for somebody like yourself, if you have deteriorated knees, I would move you from a standing break fall to a sitting break fall, right? So you would start sitting on your butt, and you would just fall backwards and just work the fall, so that at least you have the muscle memory of when you're falling, versus from a full standing position, if you fall backwards and your knee gives out, that could be a bad day, you know? So I'm very adamant about telling my students, give me what you can give me, but do not push yourself to a point where you're gonna get injured. Because the last thing I wanna do is see somebody get injured, and then, you know, that 1 week turns into never coming back, right? So I want you to be here for a long time. So the best thing to do is to make sure that they know that I know that I don't need them to be the hero. You know what I mean? There's no need to do that. It's just take your time, progress as much as you can give me, but make sure that you are giving me your 100 through it, you know?
You know, let's take a couple of steps back. You and I have the same ethnic background.
Correct.
You know, we're both Assyrian. I thought it was funny that your mom is from the same village that my dad's from. Benny El Dariush, who just won fight number 24 in the UFC, 22 or 24. It's in the 20s. Benny's from there as well. Randa Marcus, she's Chaldean from Canada, always trains in Detroit. Bassem Youseph is from Syria. He's over in Europe. Ashur Darmo is over in Chicago. You know, he's Assyrian from Iraq. You know, we have this community, like our ancient history is extremely well known for people that have studied it, of having dominated the known world at the time.
Correct.
How much of that mindset comes into today? You know, we speak Aramaic, we speak the language of Christ. You know, the majority of us tend to be Christian. We have this legacy that we're building upon from ancient times to today, and even still keeping afloat with all the oppression that's going on in the old world. Does that play into a part of who you are and how you train?
Yeah, it absolutely does. You know, I feel that there's not many of us, right? I believe there's 2 million in the world now.
I think 4 actually, if you count everybody. Yeah.
Okay. So 4 million in the world today, and for the ones that are front and center on these lines doing what we do, there's not many of us. There's a handful, right? And so for us, we feel that the mindset of an old Assyrian fighter was a barbarian, right? It was somebody who was ruthless. He was a savage, if you will. Like they were very feared, and we were the most feared. And so I feel like that warrior mindset follows us for all of us that do compete and are out there competing, because we look at our legacy, we look at our history, and we look at our ancestry, and we know that we come from somewhere in this world that the majority of this population will never know or understand. And we carry the greatest legacy of this world. And we still carry to this day the language that Jesus spoke, and for us that's a huge responsibility for able to make sure that this still carries on. So when we're out there competing, we're not just competing as, you know, Ashur or Benny or Rhonda. We're competing as Assyrians. We're competing as the warriors that everybody knew us as before. that's how I feel. I feel like you're carrying that flag with you everywhere you go, you know. And I want people to know I'm extremely proud of that I'm Assyrian, and I carry that flag with me everywhere I travel, you know. So when I'm competing, I wouldn't say I think of my ancestry in that time, but I use that as part of my preparation. That, you know, I'm here to kind of be front and center for the rest of the Assyrian population, and let them know that we're here fighting. We're here trying to make a difference. We're doing something that gives other Assyrians another outlet or another avenue to you know, to show that we still carry that mindset as warriors and as fighters. Because if you go to Iran, if you go to Iraq right now, that mindset, a lot of it is gone, because our land is gone. We've lost everything there, you know. So you go from being one of the most feared nations in the world to, you know, small little villages, you know, and not much to be able to defend yourself. And so I think when I think of that, I think of how I never want to ever walk somewhere in this world and have a fear that I will ever lose that feeling that I will never be able to protect myself or my family, you know. And I feel like that mindset has always been extremely strong with me to be able to protect my family and to be able to protect my loved ones around me. So learning how to fight, learning to be a martial artist, from boxing to jiu-jitsu, it's been the greatest gift for me, because it's something that kind of brings that it brings a few different aspects of being that warrior mindset, but at the same time I get to tie in my ancestry to that, and then show that I'm I don't know how to say it, it's how I can make both of those be front and center, and show the rest of the Assyrian, you know, people out there that, you know, it's okay to be like this. It's okay to be a fighter, you know. It's okay to fight back. It's okay to stand up and be proud, you know. And I just wish we can be more united in some areas, not just Turlock.
Or Chicago or
Modesto, Chicago,
yeah.
We need more in Orange County, guys.
Right.
Like, we bring some more here. There's only like 10 of us.
Right. Yeah. And we have fun out here. You know, we have the beach. Get away
we
from
have
the
a
desert.
beach and perfect weather, and, you know, yeah.
So take us back into the catalyst of launching the school. You know, you were training over in Mission Viejo. Once the academy was over there, at some point you get to a level where it's like, I think I can venture out on my own. Do you get a blessing from your instructor saying, let's expand the name? You know, how does it go about and going, you know, we're going to be a Carlson Academy and be a part of this legacy, rather than breaking off and going, all right, it's going to be the Youseph school because I'm going to mix in maybe Sambo or, you know, some other style into the art?
Yeah. So 8 years ago, this November, we opened the school. My friend Ernesto and I, we got our black belts together on the same day, and there were 7 of us that day that we all got our black belts. And me and him, we were discussing that we were going to possibly, you know, take over a friend of our school, and there was an option that, hey, we can buy this academy. And we went and talked to our instructor, and he's like, yeah, no problem, I'm there, I'm supporting you guys. And the name was going to be Carlson Gracie, because let's be real, nobody cares about Jason Youseph Jiu-Jitsu. Nobody knows what it is, right? That's why I've been under the Carlson banner from day one. You know, for 17 years, I've been under the Carlson Gracie Team. I've been fighting for this team from day one, from MMA to Jiu-Jitsu. And it's, you know, for me, it's an honor to be able to carry that flag with me as well, you know? So it's who I am. It's in me, you know? We have patches that say, you know, I fight for Carlson, or we fight for Carlson. And then we have some that say, I am Carlson, because he's through all of us, you know. His techniques, all his ideology of jiu-jitsu came through us. So for me to be a Carlson Gracie school and to be a part of the rest of the Carlson Gracie family, there was no doubt in my mind that I wouldn't be that. And so when our instructor gave us the green light, it's like, hey, let's open this up, let's do this. Unfortunately, the original school that we wanted to buy failed, and we ended up finding this location, and we turned it into today where, you know, we have what we have now. And so for the last 8 years, we've been running really strong. And about 4 years ago, my friend moved to Texas. He took a great job out there. So it just left me as a sole owner here. And we used to share everything. We used to share, you know, the classes and the, you know, all the responsibilities. Now it's 100% me. So, but, you know, he still comes out and visits. He comes out for all the anniversaries. He's very much a part of this, you know, and we've had so much fun building this together and being a part of our community and working with different organizations like Orange County Rescue Mission and Crittenton and a few other places. So we really wanted to be something that was a part of our community. And so, yeah, so we're here now, and, you know, 8 years, and it's been just so much fun. So we got the green light to do this, and we never looked back. And it's been really great.
Congratulations, 8 years in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, November 1st.
Wow. What is that like for you to sit there and reflect on the 8 years that it took to get to this point? You know, what is year 1 like versus what year 8 is becoming?
Well, there was a huge swing because there's a lot of ups and downs, right? So year 1, year 2, year 3 were fantastic. Year 4 was great. Year 5 came and we walked right into COVID, and that was an absolute nightmare here because I lost 85 to 90% of my student base. I went so in debt trying to keep the doors open because we lost so many students. No money was coming in. I didn't get any PPE loans or any grants. I wasn't awarded anything for that, so I bootstrapped this whole thing and started over. I had 20 students left, and it was hard. It was very hard. So from year 5, it stayed roughly for about a year and a half. It stayed about somewhere about 45 members. I was able to get about 20 back, but that was able to just essentially cover my bills, but it wasn't able to get me back out of the debt that I had to repay my landlord. So I went into a massive hole here, just trying to pay the bills and everything that came with it. And but eventually, you know, it with a lot of hard work, a lot of grind, you know, I just put my nose to the grindstone and I didn't stop moving. I had to keep moving the chains. That was it. And so year 6 ended. When year 7 started, it started looking up, and we started kind of seeing a climb, and we're coming out of the whole COVID thing. And right now we're better than we've ever been.
Congratulations, man. I'm really proud of you.
You know, and year 8 has been, or the end of year 7 has been absolutely amazing. And now year 8 is the year that I feel like we're really going to be, you know, even better than that. And it's going to be exciting to see year 8. And our kids' class has grown tremendously. We have a lot of kids. You know, the adults' classes are packed, and it's been amazing. It's been amazing to see everybody come back. It was a lot of hard work. You know, COVID took a lot of toll, but I wanted everybody to know, and I just had this discussion with some of my students for the parents and the kids. When a lot of people took off, a lot of them never came back, but the ones that did, I wanted them to know that I fought with every bit of my ability, the hardest fight I had, because it's so difficult when you come to your academy that used to be packed every day. You know, you're starting over. And I wanted all those kids to know when they came back here that this school fought to stay open. We did everything that we can to be here today. And I didn't want them to see that I gave up because that was the easy route. I wanted them to know that I worked harder. I went the hard route because I needed to, you know? And I wanted them to know that.
It's all right. It's what's it called? It's fair use when they're playing music that we didn't turn on and put in the background.
Yeah. I think that it kind of came right at the acceleration point, so it's gonna, you know.
Well, one thing I noticed about your academy that I haven't really seen in Orange County is that you actually have an elevated platform.
Yes.
For the mats. I've only seen one judo school in Southern California that's done that, and this is, I think, the first or second Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school that I've seen do that.
Yeah.
So that's very rare because everyone usually stays ground level.
Correct.
The tradition is to have it elevated at least 4 or 5 inches off the ground.
Correct.
Makes it easier. What's that?
We're 6 inches.
6 inches. And it makes it easier for the break falls as well when
Absolutely.
you get tossed, because you have a little bit of that give.
Yeah.
Was that intentional, and is that how you trained, or did you train on the hard mat?
I train on the hard surface, and so I built this academy myself. I did everything in here. Man, this guy he's bumping.
He's having fun.
So I built this academy myself, and I built originally, when we first opened, I put foam blocks underneath the entire platform, and so that allowed for better training and longevity and retention of the students, because less injuries, right? And then this new thing came out where everybody was talking about coil spring floors, and I was like, man, this is amazing. So how I got into the floating floor idea was I took I had a deal with Fuji mats, and I was building mats for them, and I was assembling mats and building floors, and so I was doing that for a bunch of academies on the side, and everybody kind of knew me as the guy that come build your mats. And so finally there was a day they asked me to go to Florida out in Miami, and this guy wanted coil spring flooring, and I was like, I've never seen it, and I was like, I have to do this. So I went out there, I built this coil spring floor for this guy in his custom gym in Miami, and I got on the mats and I felt what it was like, and I went home, I called Fuji, I was like, send me 2,000 square feet, I want it, you know? I need to have it. And so a few weeks later, I ended up start putting that whole platform here myself, and it has been so amazing to have. The break falls are great. You can do judo all day long for hours on end. Nobody gets hurt. I've taken some pretty nasty falls and takedowns on this, and you bounce right back. You have a really nice spring recoil when you hit the ground, so it absorbs the impact for you, right? But I trained on these mats on the floor. It hurts. The longevity of what you can do with that is it's not a long career. Especially if you're a hobbyist. If you're a hobbyist, you want this. If you're not a hobbyist and you're a professional athlete, you still want this, because you can train longer and you can train harder. But if I train on this and I go train at another friend of my school that doesn't have this, my body hurts more, because there's just more density behind every impact of when I hit the ground, and it hurts. My body hurts way more training elsewhere.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier you went and did the custom mats for them. How easy, if like a spring breaks, is it to replace?
If one of these coil springs break, it's not terribly hard to fix. It's just a lot of labor of taking all these mats out and then taking each sheet of plywood out and then getting underneath and fixing that one piece. I wouldn't say it's terribly hard. I think majority of people could probably do it if it's just one piece. But if it's a whole section that collapses, that's a whole different story.
It's almost like a pro wrestling ring.
Yeah, exactly. Except they have one giant spring in the middle and it absorbs everything. This is spread out for every square foot throughout the entire mat space.
That's incredible. Yeah. You mentioned your mom did not want you to open the academy, so we're going to touch on the whole Assyrian parent thing real quick. 8 years later, you're still here.
Yeah.
What has mom now said?
My mom's very excited. She loves it now. She realizes that, this was my calling. This is what I was meant to do. This is who I was supposed to be. And I get to give something back to not just my family name, but our culture. And I get to be a part of the history of, our culture for this, So she loves it. She loves the idea that, I get to work with so many different people from all different parts of the world, and I now I would say she's very proud to say that my son owns a jiu-jitsu school. She actually told.
I know where this is going because we all lived it at some point.
Listen, she told my wife, she goes, so what do you tell people he does? And she goes, easy. I tell him he owns a gym, and I tell him and I also have a construction business too. And so she goes, easy. I tell him he owns a gym and he has a construction business. And then she goes, you don't find the whole gym thing weird? Like, he's not a doctor, not a lawyer. She goes, no. She goes, I love it. She goes, and that's I think if traditionally speaking, I think what I'm doing is extremely awkward to anybody, that's Assyrian. I think most cultured families, they're going to be like Joe Coy, right? Filipino comedian. He's like, Mom, I want to be a comedian. She goes, do you think we have clowns in this family? She's like, no. She's like, you're going to be a nurse, a mailman, something else. So I think that was kind of like with my mom. It was the same thing. She's like, no, you can't do this. But now she sees that, I'm doing better things, through my community and helping so many people, and she loves to see that, the growth that this gym has taken. She loves to see it, and she's extremely proud, and she's starting to understand, like, oh, okay, this is, my son's successful at this, he's done a great job, and because it's like, hey, you're talking to a doctor and a guy who owns a jiu-jitsu school, so it's like, it's hard to understand what I do, and it's easy to understand what the doctor does, right?
And your wife's the engineer, so it's perfect.
Yeah.
Is she really an engineer? Or?
No, she's not an engineer at all.
I was going to say.
She's a financial advisor.
Okay.
She has her own practice, extremely successful. She's, the hardest working woman I've ever seen in my life. And she's extremely encouraging, and she loves that I have the gym, and she loves that, the community that we have here, and it's a lot of fun, so.
Can we touch upon your relationship with your wife real quick, if you don't mind?
Sure.
I thought it was funny in our pre-interview, and it's so Assyrian and very Middle Eastern, that you guys met when you were 15 years old.
Correct.
But your grandfathers were friends with each other in Iran.
Correct.
Migrated here. You guys had no idea until you met.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. We found out that our grandfathers were friends maybe about a year ago, and they were best friends in Iran, working in the same hospital together. And it's like, we were joking, like, hey, do you ever think that, like, maybe they sat there and joked, like, maybe our grandkids one day will get together and have this relationship, and and so, but we met when we were 15. We've always been friends. Over the years, I've always chased her and never been able to actually, get her to say yes to anything, to like coffee or lunch, just always like, yeah, sure, and 22 years later, I finally was able to.
You wore her down.
I wore her down.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's that jiu-jitsu stamina.
Absolutely. I all this fighting preparation, it didn't allow me to give up, so. So finally, I wore her down, and during the whole COVID thing, we started really talking more, and it turned into just this amazing relationship that we have today, and so July 22nd we got married, and we're just super excited. So it's been amazing, and our whole relationship has just been kind of like a fairy tale, because I tell people, and a lot of people don't believe it, but I was 15 years old when I met her. I would say I was 18, 22, maybe 26. I blew out my birthday candles saying, I hope one day I marry this woman. Wow. And I used to dream about her. I used to always think that that's the person that I should be with, and I never knew how I can get her attention to see that. Mm-hmm. And finally, she started kind of seeing, little different me, and so I think
she's like, he hasn't lost his hair yet. We're good.
I used to tell people. They go, oh, what makes you an eligible bachelor? I'm like, first of all, I have 2 businesses. I have a full head of hair and no baby mama. So I think that's my 3 criteria that I try to always sell on myself. But yeah, so it's been great. It's been great, and my family loves her. Her family's amazing, and it's just been a dream come true.
And you had 900 people in the wedding.
We had 150 people show up. I wish we actually wanted 300 for our wedding. We wanted 300 people wedding, but we had the numbers, but oof, boy, was it expensive.
Yeah.
We ended up getting married in Malibu, and we had such an amazing wedding. So I surprised her with the song that she walked down the aisle to. I surprised her with the as my wedding gift, the guy who sings the song, to sing it to her as she walked down the aisle.
Wow.
And then I also brought in a Zurna Dabla player, and so we had the traditional Morarta, and then I also had a band there. My buddy Sal, he brought his band out, and it was a great wedding, absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Looking back on, well, real quick before I forget, Giga Chikadze, I don't know if you know Giga, who fights in the UFC, and okay, so the same thing how you at 15 knew. He saw his wife in middle school in the 8th grade across the courtyard and said, I'm going to marry her. And they've been married, I think, 15 years now.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Like, they got married
amazing.
at 18. Like, they met at 14. And so.
That's super cool.
So, you're the second person I know that has had that similar story.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Looking back on everything, from being the teenager that was interested in her, and then her being along for the ride, seeing how you developed not only as a person but as a businessman and as a gym owner, and coming to terms with that she actually had feelings for you that she was suppressing. So we're gonna put her on the spot for this. What does it say to you about not only perseverance in career and in life, but also in love? The fighter and the romantic, because it takes the same energy for both. About your perseverance in whatever you put your mind to.
Yeah, so I actually, funny enough, we talk about this a lot, her and I. My job is to fight. So when I come home, I don't want to fight. I just want to love, And so deep down inside, I'm the hopeless romantic. I'm the guy who, will do anything for her because I want to see her smile. I want to see her laugh. I want to share my love with her, and I want to show her my love every single day so she knows that, So I feel that with not giving up, and that fighter mindset of just being able to put the nose to the grindstone and just keep pushing the line, just keep pushing the chains, and eventually, I was able to, break the wall down a little bit, and she kind of started seeing a little bit different version of me. And she saw, certain things about me that she didn't realize. Oh wow, that I never took you for a guy like this. I took you as the funny guy when I see you, here and there. And yeah, funny enough, this is actually, I think this is a really cool story. So we got married July 22nd, 2022. 4 years to the day. July 22nd, 2018. She was in a Valentino store in Las Vegas, and she just looked up and she goes, I'm gonna get married in those shoes right there. She buys these shoes, and she's never worn them. She wore them on the wedding, and I told her, I said, you should go return those shoes. She goes, do you know when I bought these shoes? And I was like, I don't care, it's probably expensive. So return them. And she's like, no, I'm gonna keep these shoes. I was like, okay, wear them out. So she shows me the receipt. When she grabs the receipt, total breakdown moment. She bought the shoes 4 years to the day of our wedding. So for her, it was like a whoa moment, and for me, it was like that's kind of cool. And seeing her emotional about it made me very emotional. So it was like one of those really cool things. So we kept that receipt, and we plan on going over to the store over there and sharing that story with Valentino. I think that's kind of cool.
That's an advertisement for him right there.
I think so.
Yeah.
Buy our shoes and get married.
Yeah. To go back to the martial arts thing real quick, we've seen the ebb and flow of styles taking over. So in the West, prior to World War II, we had boxing and catch wrestling, and then eventually judo takes over, and then in the 60s and 70s it becomes kung fu and karate, and 80s it becomes karate and then ninjutsu, and then in the 90s, thanks to the Gracies, it becomes Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. and now thanks to Cobra Kai, it's karate again. You know, what is the ebb and flow of continuously moving between striking and grappling as the as the fad of martial arts for the generation?
Yeah, so I think jiu-jitsu, as long as God willing, it doesn't get watered down. I think jiu-jitsu will persevere, and I think it will be, because it's still not even the best it can be yet. It's not even close. The UFC, I think it's getting a little overplayed. I think we're seeing too much of it. It's every weekend. There's a fight every weekend. There's something every weekend, and I think it's kind of overplayed, and people kind of get the idea of it. But most people don't want to do that. You know, they want to learn how to defend themselves, but they don't want to get punched in the face every day, right? Like, you're not going to pay me $200 a month to punch you in the face, right? Like, that sounds like a horrible idea. So the business model for fighters, actually for gym owners to have professional fighters, they don't make money on the fighters. They make money on the students that pay to come in and train. So I think you're going to see a huge increase of jiu-jitsu over these next several years. I think we're going to see jiu-jitsu become so mainstream that it's going to be front and center on TV, that it's going to end up being on public network. It's time, you know? And I think shows like Cobra Kai, even though it's karate based and fake, clearly doesn't work.
Well, let's put it in perspective for people. People that live in Encino don't go to school with people in Reseda. It's too far away if you live in Southern California to realize that it's not worth that 15-mile drive.
No, no. And so I feel like we're going to see a huge increase over these next several years. I think we're going to see jiu-jitsu actually become so mainstream that we went from, you know, laying the pavement, right? Like the generation before me really, you know, kind of brought the gravel to the road of where they want to lead us to. And then my generation came in and started kind of really kind of just putting that road base down, and now we have all these young kids coming up, and we're seeing them actually make money. Like, there's organizations that are paying children to compete on big stages. Submission Hunter Pro in Texas, they have professional kids jiu-jitsu competitions where they have championship belts. They get paid to compete. Tell me a sport. Tell me any AYSO soccer league, baseball, flag football. Tell me any kid making money. Kids in jiu-jitsu are making money now. I know kids, the Rotolo twins, the very famous Rotolo twins in San Diego. They were doing seminars. I went to one. They were doing seminars when they were 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old. I went to one. I was a fan of them as kids because they were the best kids at the time. And now they're the best adults. So it's really cool to see that kids can actually make a career for themselves through jiu-jitsu. And we're at that stage where now we're seeing jiu-jitsu as a mainstream thing for children. And it's helping kids with bullying. It's helping kids with being able to defend themselves and, and be able to stand up for themselves. But more importantly, it's building good character. It's building the confidence that most of these kids need today to go to school, because you got this guy over here, you know, being a Facebook warrior, and he wants to say, oh, this kid's stupid. Well, we have so much practice and training that words don't mean anything to us, you know? And so they could say something to these kids, and, you know, the kids in jiu-jitsu are going, that's cool, you know, but get off that keyboard and I'll, you know, bring you over here one day. And I feel like that's going to be the new norm, is people getting off the computers, and they're going to come to jiu-jitsu, and they're going to realize, like, hey, this is real. It's so good for you. It's so good for your kids. It's good for families to train together, you know? For husbands and wives, I like to call it couple therapy, right? But it's really good to see the kids be able to have the opportunity to travel the world and enjoy and make money, you know? It's really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Jason, take us through the schedule of the school, where we can find the website, and why this particular Carlson Gracie facility is the one we should choose.
Sure. So we have classes mainly in the evening time, so from 4:45 to all the way to 8:30 at night, and sometimes we stay a little later, but it ranges from varieties of kids classes to adults classes. And we're also here on the weekends as well. You can check us out at carlsongracieirvine.com. The reason why I think this place is, a place for most people, it's a very family-friendly oriented place. I come from a cultured background, so how you feel when if I were to come to your house, how you would treat me is how I would treat you if you come into my business. And I want people to feel like they're part of the family. I pride myself on respecting everybody in this room and them respecting each other. So when you come here, you're not going to feel like an outsider. You're not going to feel like a dollar. You're going to feel like you're part of this family. You're not a number here, and I try to really make that a part of the culture that we've had over the last 8 years.
It's fantastic, man. And take us through the social media where we can find you, and will there eventually be day classes for people that want to train in the mornings? Because that seems to be a thing now.
Yeah, so we're building back the day classes. So we used to have day classes for morning and noon time. So we're actually building those back as we speak. You can find me on Facebook, just Jason Youseph. On Instagram, it's Jason the Bermuda Triangle. And I don't do Twitter or anything else, but yeah. So Facebook and Instagram, you can find me.
Awesome. Jason, thank you so much for your time today. I'm glad we got to profile you, take a look at the gym, and it's a great facility, and congratulations on keeping the Assyrian name alive.
Thank you so much for the time and the opportunity. It's a pleasure.